If you're losing monthly listeners on Spotify month after month and you don't know why, I'm going to try and explain what might be going on and how to fix it. What's up? I'm Zilla, and I've created multiple successful music projects like Zilla, Sunbroku, and Funkrat. And over 100 million streams later, I've learned a thing or two. One of those things that I've learned is how Spotify works, and more importantly, how Spotify gets you streams. Now, you're probably wondering why I said Spotify gets you streams. Shouldn't it be how I get streams on Spotify? Well, see, that's the thing. Spotify, algorithmically, probably gives you way more streams than you probably provide Spotify in traffic. See, the best artists, the most successful artists on Spotify are the ones that bring traffic to Spotify. This is why it's important to see what percentage of your streams are algorithmic. You can check this out in your Audience tab on the Spotify for Artists app under Source of Streams. It's only then that we can determine why your monthly listeners are dropping. Let's say you have a very high percentage of algorithmic streams. That means you are at the whim of the algorithm. Now, when I say algorithm, I don't mean that there are robots deciding whether or not your music is worthy enough to be streamed. Think algorithm as audience. It's not the algorithm streaming your music, or not streaming your music in this case. It's the audience. The problem with this is that its audience is the audience that Spotify has determined is your audience. If you rely on Spotify to find your audience, well, it can do that pretty well, but you are at the mercy of Spotify's algorithm. This is why it's so important to not pay to get on the Spotify playlist, why it's also important to pitch for editorials, why it's also so important to be consistent with your releases, because the more information that you give to Spotify about what your music is, who listens to it, and who will listen to it, the better. So, if the percentage of algorithm streams are more than, let's say, 40% to 50%, then this is what I would suggest you start doing. Start focusing more on organic ways to get new listeners. This means posting content towards your preferred audience. For example, with my metal project Sunbroku, the audience that I wanted to reach were fans of Dragon Ball Z and anime. My content reflected that, and it paid off in dividends. I was sending traffic to Spotify, and then Spotify used that information to feed it to similar listeners. This is why platforms like TikTok are so important, because the conversion rate from that application to Spotify is very high, rather than something like YouTube, which in itself is a music streaming platform. But we'll talk about that another time. In fact, let me know down in the comments if you guys want me to talk about conversion rates in another video. But for now, let's get back to those monthly listeners we're losing. You also want to get away from any kind of playlist that your music is currently sitting on, ones that you may have paid for. And if you're on a playlist that yourself has advocated for, make sure that playlist fits with your music genre and community of listeners. A great way to figure this out is if a lot of the other artists on the playlist are related artists to you on Spotify. That's if you even have related artists at this time. If you don't and you're still new to Spotify, then just use your ears and a bit of common sense. The main point that I'm trying to get across is that you yourself have to do the work in order to get the streams on that platform. If you rely on Spotify to do that for you, you are at the mercy of Spotify, and that's the last thing you want if you want to be successful as a music artist. There are plenty of times where I see artists that are very successful on Spotify and not successful on other music platforms. There are a lot of artists that are successful on Spotify only, or even YouTube only, and they are still relatively unknown in the outside world. And that's because a lot of artists that primarily get their streams straight from algorithmic playlists or radio play are streamed passively, meaning that the ones who are listening are just passively listening while walking at the gym or something. They're least likely to finish a song or add that song to a playlist, and even if they do, there still isn't many ways to connect directly to that artist through Spotify, so all the interaction and experience to that artist stays tied up inside of the Spotify app. This is why it's best to make that connection before sending them to an app like Spotify to stream your music. That will also allow your stream to listener ratio to grow, meaning less people are streaming more, which actually means more to the Spotify algorithm. It will also help stabilize your monthly listeners. Now, if you have relatively low algorithmic stream percentage, then my advice changes pretty drastically. If you're doing everything that you can to send Spotify traffic and you're not relying on the algorithm to carry you to large numbers, and you're still losing monthly listeners, then my advice to you is to not worry about it. I know, hard, right? But unless you're losing 50% of your normal audience, then just be at peace within the knowledge that streams and listeners, they come and they go. Songs will blow up and they will fizzle out. You're going to have huge jumps in streams, and you're going to have even bigger dips in streams. It is the nature of the game, and it is a game that if you learn how to play it well, it will treat you well. Being a full-time musician isn't about blowing up, buying a house, and retiring, though that would be nice. It is not the key to having long-term success as a music artist, especially in today's streaming age where what matters is cultivating an audience that is passionate about your music, and not just your music, your brand and you yourself as a person. If you can do that, then success is right around the corner for you, if you aren't successful already. If that's the case, then keep doing what you're doing, because it's only going to continue to grow, and you will continue to grow as an artist. Anyway, guys, with that down, I leave it up to you. What do you guys think? Have your monthly listeners declined as of late? If so, what do you think the reason is? Or maybe, did you listen to this video and you realized maybe it's not as bad as you thought it was? Let me know if this video helped you either ease your mind or get your act together. I want these videos to be a conversation back and forth. If you guys have questions, let me know down in the comments. Maybe I'll make a video answering those questions. I'm not here to sell you guys on some kind of course. I'm here to sell you guys on myself and my own experience by telling you guys what I've done, what I'm doing, what I plan to do, and letting you guys know if it works, fails, and you guys can learn from my experience. And not only that, I can learn from my own experience and your experience. Let's help each other grow and move forward in our careers as music artists. I'm Zilla, and this has been another episode of Zilla Mode. Zilla out.